The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.
Say what's on my mind at any given time of day, cause I'm a renegade. Never been afraid to holler about anything.
All right. Welcome into SportsTownChicago.com. It's the Sports Renegades here. We're back on the air here in studio. I'm Ryan Stuprich. And so we're finally back on here. Our new time slot Mondays from 4 to 6 p.m., I should say. And, there's a lot to talk about, obviously, and we're going to start off talking about the Cubs and Jake Arrieta.
481 different pitchers had lost a game since Jake Arrieta suffered his last loss.
And, of course, that's very interesting. Obviously, the last game he lost, at least with the with his own loss, was the day that Cole Hamels threw the no-hitter. So that's, very interesting. It's been almost a year since that happened.
Yeah, I mean, and as I said, 481 different pitchers suffered a loss in that historic span. Unfortunate that it's over. It was going to come to an end eventually, and you kind of could tell Arrieta's arm doesn't look like he's been as good as he has been, or as he was in that second half of last season. And, I mean, obviously his control looks a little off, as evidenced by he's walking more guys. He only walked one batter yesterday, except he's already walked 26 batters through 80 innings this year.
Is that right?
He's already walked 26.
That's ridiculous.
And last season, he walked only 48 batters in 229 innings. So his control's a little off. He's still striking out a good amount of guys. He has 87 strikeouts through 80 innings pitched, except in his past games, against the Dodgers on Tuesday, he pitched 7 shutout innings, except he walked 4 batters in that game. And he was looking to start out 10-0, and he couldn't do it. He's now 9-1 on the season, except he still has a solid 1.80 ERA.
Yeah, the thing I found interesting, especially about yesterday's game, which we were both at, ironically, I went with my cousins, and I guess so did you. So that's pretty interesting. The thing I found interesting is he didn't pitch bad. I know my dad was watching it on TV. He had 8 strikeouts through 3 innings, so there was only one batter he didn't strike out the first time through that lineup. And, besides all the hits and stuff, I'm talking about just straight outs. But the thing that was interesting is he had good stuff. It seemed like he had good stuff. The hits that he gave up were just sort of, perfectly placed by Arizona, in the right spot and the right time, and they had that big hit by Yasmani Tomas that sort of got them up early, and they never looked back from there. And they had some really good pitching too, Arizona.
Yeah, Patrick Corbin pitched very well in the game. 7 innings, 2 runs allowed, didn't walk a batter, 5 strikeouts. And going back to those hits that were well placed, it was on that second hit. It was by Chris Owings when Matt Caesar dove and missed it.
Right.
That's a ball that Jason Hayward catches.
Oh, I say no doubt. Right.
I mean, that's a ball Jason Hayward catches. That Tomas double into the gap. Hayward might cut that off and keep that from to a single. I mean, you don't know, except that ball that Owings hit most likely would have been caught by Hayward, and then it could have been only 2 runs allowed for Arrieta.
Right, and and also at the end of the game, of course, there was that nice home run from Javier Baez. But, at the end of the game when Anthony Rizzo came up to pinch hit, I think we were all expecting something that just maybe he would hit a game-tying home run. But they ended up, I think those last 2 pitches by Ziegler, I think, is Arizona's closer. Those last 2 pitches, I think he was trying to walk him.
That was like one of the intentional walks. Montero's on deck. He's hitting 215 this year, or 207, I'm sorry. And who would you rather face, Anthony Rizzo or Miguel Montero?
Right. And so that was very interesting. But I thought, the wind was blowing out most of the day. If Montero got a hold of one, we know how much power he has. If he got a hold of one, maybe I could have carried. I mean, Jake Arrieta's hit that he had, I mean, that was hit really high into the air. I didn't think it had a chance to go out until it just kept carrying and carrying. That
looked like a routine fly ball, and it kept carrying. And if that ball gets out, that's 3-3, and he's off the hook.
Right.
I mean, not to take anything away from Arizona, they made him throw a lot of pitches. He threw 108 pitches through 5 innings. That you can't do that. That's too many pitches you're throwing. You're not
very un-Arrieta-like. Normally he has a great pitch count and sort of mows down everybody, but yeah, he struggled those first 2 innings.
Right, and I mean, he only walked 1 batter. He did give up 9 hits, though, so it was kind of batting average on balls in play was not in his favor yesterday.
Right. So, yeah, it was just interesting. I mean, that they still finish 8-2 on the homestand. They're in Philadelphia right now. They're going to play at 6 o'clock, and they're going to be on a road trip now. But it was nice to. I mean, if you can go 8-2 every homestand, you'll be in very good shape. Obviously.
And that stat right there is another way that baseball is just a weird game. Those 2 losses were both Arrieta starts, and they were 8-0 with the other 4 guys.
Right.
It's just how baseball is.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's a funny game. Yeah, it's very unpredictable, obviously. But yeah, now they look forward to the next chance against the Phillies, and they go 8-2 on the homestand, like we said, and obviously there's really no worry with this team as far as how far we think they'll go and what they might need, towards the trade deadline. They probably need a bullpen arm. I would think maybe a lefty. I know a lot of people are saying they need a left-handed specialist that can come in maybe in the 8th inning instead of Strop, who's a righty, because in certain situations you might need a lefty, obviously. So I would think the bullpen would probably be their biggest need towards the deadline.
I mean, maybe a starter depending on how Hamill fares. As we get towards July, because
that's true.
You really don't know what's going to happen with Hamill, because last year was that his season kind of turned around when he had that hamstring injury. He had one on Monday. You don't know how it's going to impact him. I mean, obviously, the past 2 seasons, Hamill's had a great first half, and then the second half, he just did not pitch like that guy in the first half.
I'm not even sure he had many wins in the second half. He had like 2, I think, in his second half. His ERA was well over 5. I think it was 5.84 or something.
He couldn't have had that many wins because you need to pitch 5 innings to get a win, and he was pitching a lot of 3-inning games because Joe Maddon had no confidence in him.
Right, yeah, he had a short hook a lot, especially in the playoffs, although it ended up working out in that Cardinals series. But yeah, he had the short hook there, and it's just... It's going to be fun, obviously. I don't think they're home a lot in June, but they're home a lot in July. So, of course, summer at Wrigley Field will always be fun, especially now. And, everyone, while the Cubs aren't all hitting good at the same time, all their averages are going to go up in the summer months. We saw Rizzo starting to hit better in this last series, and, we still have confidence that Hayward will figure it out and start to hit better, which he has been hitting a little better, but, the average hasn't gone up yet.
I mean, that's just another thing. Like, I mean, they're not all hitting. They still have 39 wins. They're playing the Phillies now. I mean, it's really been a fun season, except there's such a long way to go. You can't get too far ahead of yourself at this point.
Yeah, there is a very long way to go, obviously. And if you take a look at some of the other teams in baseball, Washington still playing very well. Although when Dusty Baker's the manager, they may go to the postseason, but they don't win anything. So that's a good sign. He took the Reds to the playoffs, didn't win anything. Took the Cubs to the playoffs, didn't win anything. Took the Giants to the World Series and didn't win. So I mean, he can manage some good teams. When it comes to the playoffs, he usually gets outmanaged.
Yeah, and I mean, some of that has to do with he just leaves his starters in a little too long sometimes because he doesn't trust his bullpen. And, I mean, with the Cubs in 2003, their bullpen was not very good.
Right.
Obviously, the Nationals' bullpen probably could use a couple improvements as they traded Drew Storen into the Blue Jays in the offseason for Ben Revere. And the bullpen, obviously, as you said, the Cubs could use a lefty reliever, except Travis Wood has just been dominant this year. I mean, he's been nothing short of dominant. His ERA went down to 2.45.
Yeah, the Cubs bullpen overall, there's been some very good pieces, including Travis Wood. Adam Warren has given up some home runs, and Justin Grimm hasn't been as dominant as he has been, although he's still been a pretty good pitcher. And Trevor Cahill's been great this year, too. So, I mean, there's really no big complaints at this point because we know Pedro Strop and Hector Rondon are lights out right now. But, yeah, of course, it'd be nice to have some bullpen help eventually. Just to add another piece in case, things happen, because the starting pitching, while it's been outstanding, it's the best ERA in baseball by far. I think last week they had a team starter ERA of 2.84, which is by far the best in baseball. But now we can't expect them to hold on to that for the whole year. It's going to go up probably a little bit, so you really need some nice arms in the bullpen to get the job done later in the game.
And they do definitely need another lefty in the bullpen because the only other lefty they have is Clayton Richard, and in very limited action, he just has not been as very effective.
Yeah.
He was better last season, so, obviously you need another lefty there. And the thing about the Cubs bullpen that's nice is that they have 3 different guys that can start, or actually 4. Richard can start. I don't think they would give him an opportunity unless he starts pitching a little better. Wood can start. His ERA is down to 2.45. He's been great. Cahill can start, and also Adam Warren.
Right, and I think that's one of the reasons why they got Adam Warren was the hope that at some point he may be a starter. He's always a possibility to be a starter, especially if Hamill starts struggling. I think the other 4 are going to be solid in the rotation for years to come, but. Of course, Lackey's only on a 2-year deal or something. But, I think Adam Warren has the potential to start. I know he had the potential when he was with the Yankees. They kept saying, he might be the 5th man, he might be starting, all that stuff. So, yeah.
And obviously, the thing you have to look at, though, as you approach the trade deadline, John Lackey has been very good. He got off to a rough start. He's picked it up, except you have to think, when you match up against the Mets, do you think this rotation can beat them in the playoffs? Because last year, John Lackey would not have made the difference in them winning that series or not. They might have still gotten swept with him. Maybe they would have won one of those games if they had him, except he would not have made a difference in that series. And when you just kind of go looking at the matchups, once you get past Arrieta and Lester, you really don't trust the back end of that rotation to get it done if something happens like last year where Arrieta and Lester lost games 1 and 2 against the Mets.
Right.
Kyle Hendricks, he's been pitching very well, except I'd say he's probably more of a number 4 guy in the playoffs.
Yes, I would agree with that, especially because of Lackey's experience in the playoffs. You would think he would sort of fit into that third. He would go right after Lester and everything. So, yeah. I agree with you there, and of course, in that Mets series in the playoffs, it didn't help that Daniel Murphy hit a leadoff home run every time for the Mets. So, or not a leadoff home run, a first inning home run, I should say. But yeah,
he's literally just picked up right where he left off from last year. He's hitting around 385 right now for the Nationals. He literally has picked it up. I can't believe it. I thought. He probably would come back down to earth.
He's never been this good in his whole career. He was not even that good with the Mets until last year. He always had the potential to hit, but he was never the best player on the Mets. Not even the best 3. He's not even the 3rd best player on the Mets at one point. But now on Washington, like you said, he's continued right where he left off last year.
Mm-hmm. He was always a serviceable second baseman, hit 270 to 280. Which is what you out of a left-handed hitting second baseman, except, he's found his power stroke. He's squaring up the ball much better, hits both left and right-handed pitching, and the Nationals might have lucked out when Brandon Phillips vetoed his deal to the Nationals so they could give Murphy that 3-year contract because he's been great.
Right. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to do an update, and then we're going to take a break because we're running up against the clock here. We'll come back, and we're going to discuss the White Sox, and we're going to discuss, sort of the turmoil that they're in right now. They got swept by the Tigers. Unfortunately, they made the sort of interesting trade for James Shields. They traded away Eric Johnson and another prospect for for James Shields. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the White Sox.